Harborview City never truly slept. Its neon lights flickered across wet asphalt, the sound of traffic echoing through narrow alleyways and bustling streets. Officer Daniel Reyes adjusted the brim of his cap as he guided his patrol car through the late-night streets. A chill ran down his spine. Not from the cold, but from a vague sense that something tonight would go wrong. Ahead, a black SUV swerved unusually close to the curb. The driver didn't signal. The license plate was partially obscured. Daniel's instincts screamed, "Something is off." He flicked on the sirens and pulled the vehicle over. The city's night air seemed to thrum with tension as the SUV's taillights glowed red. The driver, a young white man with sharp features and eyes that never stayed still, froze when Daniel approached. "Good evening. License and registration, please," Daniel said, keeping his tone firm but calm. The man's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "Evening, officer. Is there a problem?" Daniel scanned the vehicle. 3 occupants. A young black woman in the back seat, her eyes calculating, almost amused, and a 4th figure, partially obscured, who Daniel didn't immediately recognize. His gut tightened. "I pulled you over because you were swerving, and the plate." Daniel gestured toward the license plate. "It's partially obscured. Standard procedure." The young man, Aiden Cross, chuckled nervously. "I must have had a bit too much to drink," he said, though his hands betrayed him. They were steady, controlled, almost too calm for a man who claimed to be drunk. Daniel frowned. Something about him didn't sit right. Then he noticed the woman in the back seat, Talia Morgan, shifting slightly, her gaze never leaving Daniel. It wasn't fear. It was calculation. This isn't random, Daniel thought. These people know exactly what they're doing. Before he could react further, Talia leaned forward slightly and whispered something too quiet to hear. But Daniel caught the tone. It was a signal. Something was about to happen. "You're going to have to step out of the vehicle," Daniel said, his voice sharper. Aiden's lips curved into a smirk. "Sure, officer." But instead of moving slowly, as Daniel expected, he made a sudden movement toward the glove compartment. Daniel's heart skipped. Too late. Aiden was already pulling something metallic from inside. "Stop!" Daniel yelled, drawing his firearm. But in the next instant, chaos erupted. The SUV's door swung open. Talia leapt out, agile and silent, disappearing into the shadows. Aiden shoved the door shut behind him and sprinted. Daniel radioed for backup, but the SUV's engine roared, tires screeching as it bolted into the night. In that moment, Daniel realized his mistake. Stopping them was the worst decision I could have made. From the alley across the street, a shadow emerged. Someone Daniel hadn't noticed before. Detective Sofia Alvarez, her face half-lit by the streetlight, narrowed her eyes at the fleeing figures. "You stopped the wrong people," she muttered under her breath. "This isn't petty theft. This is something bigger." Daniel's mind raced. He could feel the weight of the city pressing down, the knowledge that he had interfered with a high-stakes operation he wasn't even aware of yet. He pursued Aiden through the back streets, but every turn, every alley, seemed to have been planned by someone who knew the city better than he did. Adrian, or Aiden, was gone, and Talia, she was a ghost. Daniel's radio crackled. "Officer Reyes, do you copy? Situation. I stopped the suspects, but they're gone," Daniel said, voice tight with disbelief. "This is bad," Sophia said, her tone deadly calm. "You just walked right into a trap. You have no idea who you just messed with." Daniel's stomach dropped. The first adrenaline spike of fear shot through him. He had no backup, no plan, and no clue about the forces he had just activated. Across the city, in the shadows, Aiden and Talia regrouped. "We lost him for now," Talia said, her tone sharp, precise. "But he's curious now. And curious cops make mistakes." Aiden laughed quietly. "Then we wait. Let him chase shadows while we finish what we came for." And somewhere in the heart of Harborview City, Officer Daniel Reyes realized the chilling truth. The night he thought he had everything under control had already spiraled out of his hands. Every decision he made from now on would determine whether he survived or became a cautionary tale whispered in police stations across the city. White heavy checkmark Chapter 1 Summary. Sets up the hook and action. Stopping the suspects. Introduces main characters. Daniel, Aiden, Talia, Sophia. Builds tension, suspense, and stakes. Hints at twists and hidden skills that will unfold later. Leaves a cliffhanger that will pull the audience into Chapter 2. If you want, I can continue with Chapter 2 next, where Daniel tries to track the suspects, unaware of Talia's manipulation. Aiden and Talia's true plan starts to unfold. The first twist reveals just how skilled and dangerous these criminals are. Daniel's rookie mistakes start to escalate, showing why stopping them was truly catastrophic. The rain began to fall over Harborview City, turning the streets into a slick, reflective maze of neon lights and shadows. Officer Daniel Reyes sat in his patrol car, gripping the steering wheel tightly, replaying the events of the last 10 minutes over and over. The black SUV, the woman's calculated glare, Aiden's unnerving calm. It all burned into his mind. "Why did I stop them?" he muttered aloud. "What did I even see?" His radio crackled. "Daniel, backup units are still en route." "Are the suspects in custody?" "No," Daniel admitted, his jaw tight. "They disappeared. One female, one male, maybe two others in that SUV. I don't even know who I was dealing with." A sigh came from the radio. Detective Sofia Alvarez stepped out of the shadows and walked over, her trench coat dripping rainwater. Her eyes were sharp, unflinching. "You've just made the worst rookie mistake I've ever seen," she said, her voice low and icy. "Do you even realize who you just stopped?" Daniel blinked. I thought they were just petty thieves. Maybe joyriding." Sophia's gaze hardened. "Petty thieves don't carry surveillance-level equipment in the back of their SUV. Petty thieves don't vanish like ghosts into the alleys of Harborview. You've just interfered with a major operation, Daniel. And now you've put everyone at risk." Daniel swallowed hard. I have to find them." "You have to stay alive first," Sophia said. "We'll figure out the rest later. But stop chasing shadows blindly, or they'll use you." Meanwhile, across the city, Aiden Cross and Talia Morgan crouched behind a shipping container near the docks. Their breathing was calm, measured. The rain-slicked ground reflected the neon of the port cranes, casting long, shifting shadows across their faces. "They fell for it," Aiden said, grinning. "The cop actually tried to stop us. I can't believe it." Talia's eyes narrowed. "He's persistent, I'll give him that. But persistent cops are predictable. He'll make mistakes. And mistakes are what we need." Aiden chuckled. "So what's the next move?" Talia produced a small tablet and began swiping through schematics of the port warehouses. "Tonight's operation depends on precision. And our little friend, Officer Reyes, has just accelerated the timeline." "Perfect," Aiden said. "A little chaos always works in our favor." Back at the Harborview police station, Daniel reviewed the SUV's partial license plate and vehicle registration on his computer. His eyes widened as he discovered a pattern. Multiple incidents in the past 3 months where similar vehicles had been reported in high-profile robberies. But no one had been able to catch the perpetrators. His heart sank. He hadn't stumbled upon petty criminals. He had intercepted a professional, organized crime operation, and by stopping them, he had triggered something far more dangerous. Detective Sophia appeared behind him. "You know, I gave you a chance to play smart. But curiosity killed the cat, Daniel. Every second you spend figuring this out could cost someone their life." Daniel swallowed. "Then we have to move fast. They're at the docks. I can feel it." Sophia shook her head. "We don't know that. And if you go alone—" "I'm not going alone," Daniel interrupted, grabbing his radio. "Call in backup, perimeter the docks. I need eyes on every exit." Meanwhile, at the docks, Talia had already executed the first stage of their plan. Surveillance cameras were looped, and a series of false leads had been planted across the city. Every alleyway and road Daniel thought would trap them was already manipulated. Aiden tapped into a nearby port terminal computer, accessing shipment logs and security access codes. "We're invisible," he said, his voice low but confident. "Every step Daniel takes, we've already anticipated." Talia smiled. "And if he steps wrong, the entire department will look like amateurs." Daniel and his unit arrived at the docks under heavy rain, the patrol car lights slicing through the darkness. He could feel the tension thickening in the air, a premonition of disaster pressing down on his shoulders. Every decision he made now had consequences he couldn't yet see. "Split up," Sophia ordered, her tone sharp. "We can't let them escape. They're not just dangerous, they're intelligent. Watch each other's backs." Daniel nodded and moved forward, flashlight in hand. He could barely make out shadows slipping between containers. He called out, "Harborview PD, step out." There was silence. Then a noise. Something metallic clanged. Daniel's heart leapt. He ran toward it, ignoring the radio buzzing with warnings. From the shadows, Aiden emerged, moving like a shadow himself, quick and unpredictable. A brief chase ensued. Daniel dove to tackle him, but Aiden was faster, ducking into the dark corners of the shipping yard. Then Talia appeared from behind a stack of crates, her calm demeanor in stark contrast to the chaos she orchestrated. She smirked at Daniel. "You really thought stopping us was a good idea?" she asked softly. Daniel realized, in a chilling instant, that he was outmatched. These weren't ordinary criminals. They were strategic, precise, and ruthless, and his intervention had only made them more dangerous. Daniel is trapped between Aiden and Talia, who are far more skilled than he anticipated. Backup is on the way, but Daniel's decisions could jeopardize innocent lives. The first twist. The woman Daniel thought was a bystander is actually the mastermind behind the operation. Stakes escalate. Every move Daniel makes now could lead to disaster. The rain-soaked docks of Harborview City were eerily quiet, except for the occasional hiss of a seagull or the distant hum of cargo cranes. Officer Daniel Reyes crouched behind a stack of wooden crates, flashlight shaking slightly in his grip. Every nerve in his body screamed that he had underestimated the situation, and the two figures he had stopped weren't ordinary criminals. He adjusted his earpiece, whispering into the radio. "Backup units, I need you to cover the east and west exits. Do not let anyone slip past. Repeat, do not let anyone slip past." There was a crackle of static, then Sophia's voice. "Understood. Stay calm, Daniel. You're not alone." Daniel peeked around the crates, catching a glimpse of Aiden Cross disappearing into the shadows. Then a soft, deliberate step echoed behind him. Talia Morgan emerged, her eyes glinting under the neon lights. "You're persistent," she said, her voice almost teasing. "I almost admire that, but persistence can be dangerous." Daniel tightened his grip on his firearm. "Step aside, Talia. You're surrounded." She tilted her head. Am I? From the corner of his eye, Daniel noticed the shadows shifting. Aiden had circled behind the crates faster than Daniel could track. Every route Daniel thought he had covered was already exploited. Suddenly, the first blast of a smoke grenade erupted near the containers, engulfing the area in thick, choking fog. Daniel coughed, eyes watering. Through the haze, movement flashed, figures darting from side to side. They planned for this? Daniel muttered, a cold realization settling over him. This wasn't random. They knew exactly what I would do. Meanwhile, across the docks, Aiden and Talia regrouped behind a crane, coordinating their next moves. They're predictable, Aiden whispered. The officer thinks he's controlling the perimeter, but he's reacting. That's his weakness. Talia's eyes narrowed. And reactive cops can't adapt fast enough when every move has been pre-planned. Let's see how far he'll go to prove himself. Back at the docks, Daniel emerged from the smoke, heart racing. He caught sight of Talia again and lunged, but she vanished between containers as if she were part of the shadows. Aiden appeared at the opposite end of the yard, smirking. Your stop was a mistake, Aiden called, his voice carrying over the chaos. You should have let us go. Now. He lifted a small device, pressing a button. The water pumps in the adjacent dockyard whirred, releasing a torrent that flooded part of the warehouse. Crates toppled, creating an instant barricade. Daniel cursed under his breath. He realized what Talia and Aiden had done. They turned his attempt to contain them into an advantage for themselves. Sophia's voice crackled over the radio again. Daniel, report. They've trapped us, Daniel gasped. They're controlling the environment, the water, the containers. They're manipulating everything. Sophia's voice was steady but tense. Get to high ground. Observe. Don't confront blindly. As Daniel scrambled up a metal staircase along a warehouse wall, he caught a glimpse of something impossible. Talia holding a tablet, controlling the lights, cameras, and even the automated dock systems. Impossible, Daniel muttered. They've hacked the entire port. From above, Daniel saw Aiden moving with precision, unlocking gates, and directing other unseen accomplices. Every move Daniel considered to trap them had already been anticipated. His worst fear solidified. Stopping them wasn't just a mistake. It was a tactical disaster. Then came the first major twist. Aiden turned toward Daniel and smirked. Officer Reyes? Do you even know why we're here? Daniel gritted his teeth. To commit a crime, obviously. Aiden shook his head slowly. No, officer. To survive. And thanks to you, we're one step ahead of everyone. You've done the hard part for us. You just don't know it yet. Daniel's mind raced. Every protocol he knew, every tactical maneuver, was being turned against him. This wasn't a simple chase anymore. It was a war of strategy. Daniel fully realizes his mistake. Stopping them gave the suspects control of the environment. Talia and Aiden reveal they're far more skilled and prepared than he could have imagined. Stakes escalate. Innocent dock workers and city infrastructure are now at risk. Twist: the crime they're committing may be part of a larger, more dangerous operation, and Daniel has inadvertently accelerated their plans. Rain slicked Harborview City's docks, reflecting the flickering neon of port cranes and shipping containers. Officer Daniel Reyes crouched atop the metal staircase, heart pounding, as he watched the chaos unfold below. What had started as a routine traffic stop had spiraled into a full-blown tactical nightmare. The flooding had slowed his unit, leaving backup struggling to navigate the waterlogged docks. Daniel realized every move he had made to control the suspects had played right into their hands. They're not just running, they're orchestrating, Daniel muttered under his breath. scanning the area. From the shadows, Talia Morgan emerged once again, her tablet glowing softly in the rain. The screens displayed multiple camera feeds, all focused on Daniel's unit and the surrounding docks. She smiled faintly. "You really shouldn't have stopped us, Officer Reyes," she said, her voice calm and measured. "Now the game has changed." Daniel clenched his fists. "What is your endgame?" Talia's eyes sparkled with a mix of amusement and cunning. "Let's just say, you're helping us more than you realize." Down below, Aiden Cross was orchestrating another maneuver. Crates were shifted, forklifts subtly moved to block escape routes, and makeshift barriers funneled Daniel's unit into tighter corridors. Daniel radioed Sophia. "We need a plan now. They're controlling everything, the containers, the flood, the layout. We can't predict their next move." Sophia's voice was tense but composed. "Focus on observation. Look for patterns. Predict, don't react. And for God's sake, don't engage them until you know exactly what you're facing." Daniel nodded. He scanned the docks, analyzing the movement of Aiden and Talia. Every maneuver seemed precise, rehearsed. Every escape route he had tried to anticipate was already accounted for. "They're not just criminals," Daniel muttered. "They're strategists." Meanwhile, Talia's tablet beeped softly. "Phase 2, she murmured. She tapped a few commands, and the lights of the docks suddenly flickered. Several shipping containers were remotely locked and unlocked in sequence, creating a maze of metal walls designed to confuse Daniel and his team. Aiden grinned. "He thinks he's chasing us. He's really just walking through our obstacle course." Down in the maze, Daniel's unit struggled to advance. Officers slipped on the wet surfaces, shouted over the roaring pumps of water, and collided with crates. Daniel realized their every step was being manipulated by the suspects. Then came an unexpected twist. A civilian worker, hiding behind a container, emerged with a flash of movement. Daniel instinctively shouted, "Stay back!" But the worker waved frantically, pointing toward a hidden tunnel beneath the docks. Talia noticed too late. "How?" she whispered. Daniel made a split-second decision. "Cover me!" he yelled, sprinting toward the tunnel entrance with 2 officers in tow. The flooding water threatened to sweep them away, but the civilians' information provided a chance. Aiden's smirk faded slightly. He signaled Talia, "Adjust the plan. They're not as predictable as we thought." The tunnel led to a narrow maintenance corridor. Daniel's team paused, catching their breath. The air was thick and humid, smelling of diesel and salt water. Daniel's mind raced. "They're clever. They anticipated my moves. But I have one advantage: they can't control everything. One small miscalculation and we might catch them off guard." Suddenly, Talia appeared at the tunnel exit, blocking their path. "Impressive," she said, stepping forward. "But every move you make now is exactly what we want." Daniel raised his gun. "Step aside, Talia. This ends tonight." Talia shook her head. "Ends? No, officer. This is just the beginning." From the shadows, Aiden emerged behind her, holding a device that controlled additional flood valves. With a press of a button, water began rising in the corridor behind Daniel's team. Trapped between the rising water and the cunning suspects, Daniel realized the chilling truth. Stopping them had unleashed a chain reaction he could no longer control. Chapter 4 Cliffhanger. Daniel's attempt to outsmart Talia and Aiden fails, forcing him into a dangerous tunnel. Environmental hazards, flooding water, narrow corridors, threaten Daniel's team. The suspects reveal their ability to manipulate the surroundings, making every move a potential disaster. Twist. A civilian worker provides unexpected help, hinting that not all is lost. but it's unclear if Daniel can turn the situation around. The narrow tunnel smelled of salt water and diesel, its walls slick from the rising flood. Officer Daniel Reyes crouched low, water reaching his knees, gripping his flashlight tightly. Every sense was alert. He knew one wrong step could send him, his team, or the civilian guide into disaster. "Keep close," Daniel whispered, his voice tight. "Don't let the water separate us." Two officers behind him nodded, struggling to maintain footing. The civilian, a young dock worker named Marcus Bennett, led the way. He was soaked but calm, moving as if he had memorized the layout of every maintenance corridor. "This way," Marcus said quietly, turning down a narrow passage. "It'll take you closer to the main control room. If you can reach it, you can stop them from manipulating the docks." Daniel's heart raced. He glanced back toward the water, which was already up to mid-thigh outside the tunnel. He realized the stakes weren't just catching the criminals. They were preventing a disaster that could flood the docks entirely and endanger dozens of lives. Meanwhile, at the docks, Talia Morgan watched their movements through her tablet. "They're using the tunnel," she said softly to Aiden Cross, her expression unreadable. Aiden's lips curved into a grin. "Good. That's exactly what we expected. It'll buy us more time for Phase 3. Phase 3. Daniel didn't know what that meant yet, but a shiver ran down his spine. Every calculated move they made had forced him to react blindly, and reacting blindly was a recipe for disaster. Talia tapped her tablet, redirecting security cameras to show phantom movements across the docks. "By the time they realize what's real, Phase 3 will be complete," she murmured. Inside the tunnel, Daniel reached a small junction with 3 possible paths. Water was rising behind them faster than anticipated. "We can't wait," he said, his jaw tight. "We have to split up. 2 of you cover the left and right paths. I'll take the center. Move fast and stay in contact." The officers hesitated, but Daniel's determined glare left no room for argument. Each step was perilous. The slick walls and submerged cables threatened to trip them, but Daniel forced himself forward, knowing that hesitation was fatal. Up above, Aiden and Talia initiated Phase 3. Crates and containers moved remotely via cranes, creating a mechanical labyrinth on the dock. Flood valves were adjusted to redirect water flow, trapping anyone outside into dangerous zones. Aiden smirked. "If they follow the wrong path, the water takes care of the rest. It's beautiful chaos." Talia nodded. "And Daniel doesn't even realize he's part of it. That's what makes it so effective. He thinks he's controlling the situation." In the tunnel, Daniel's flashlight caught a glint of metal, an exposed valve lever. He realized it could reverse the flow of water if they could reach it quickly. "Marcus, hold this," Daniel instructed, passing him a flashlight. "I'm going to try something risky. It might work, but it could also fail spectacularly." Marcus nodded, understanding the gravity. "Do what you have to, Officer Reyes." Daniel sprinted down the center corridor, his boots splashing through knee-deep water. Ahead, he could hear the faint hum of machinery and the clank of metal crates. Aiden and Talia were everywhere at once. As he reached the valve, a shadow moved across the water. Aiden was waiting. "You're predictable," Aiden said, circling Daniel like a predator. "Even with the civilian guide, you move exactly how we thought you would." Daniel's mind raced. He had to act fast. He yanked the lever, forcing water to reverse direction, surging toward the docks instead of away. Aiden's eyes widened. "Impossible!" he shouted as the flow began to disrupt their mechanical labyrinth. Crates shifted violently, knocking into automated cranes and forcing Talia to recalibrate her systems. But the victory was short-lived. From the far end of the corridor, Talia emerged, her tablet glowing. "Clever, Officer Reyes," she said, stepping onto a narrow ledge above the floodwater. "But Phase 3 isn't over. You've delayed it just a little." She pressed a series of commands, and metal panels above the tunnel began lowering, forcing Daniel to dodge and jump as the water surged around him. He realized Phase 3 wasn't just about flooding. It was a full-scale trap, designed to test his skill, his reflexes, and his judgment. Chapter 5 Cliffhanger. Daniel's counter-strategy partially works, but the suspect's plan is far from over. Phase 3 demonstrates Talia and Aiden's extreme foresight and precision. The tunnel becomes a high-stakes, deadly maze of water, machinery, and shifting crates. Twist. Daniel begins to see the magnitude of the operation. It's not petty crime. It's a coordinated city-level sabotage. The metallic scent of the flooded tunnel hung heavy in the air, mixing with salt water and diesel. Officer Daniel Reyes struggled to maintain his footing, the water swirling dangerously around his knees. His mind raced as he glanced at the partially reversed water flow. It was working, but only just. Above him, the metal panels continued to lower, forcing him to duck and dodge. Every step felt like a battle against physics itself, and every second brought him closer to being trapped. "Marcus, stay close," Daniel yelled. "We're not out of this yet." Marcus nodded, clutching the flashlight like a lifeline. "I've never seen anything like this," he muttered. "These people aren't criminals. They're artists of chaos." Daniel didn't have time to respond. From the far end of the corridor, a soft click echoed. He froze. Aiden Cross had appeared again, his movement almost silent on the wet metal floor. "You're fast," Aiden said, circling Daniel. "But fast isn't enough." Daniel tightened his grip on the valve lever. "Stop! I won't let you." Aiden lunged, forcing Daniel to twist the lever backward to keep his balance. Sparks flew as the metal scraped against the pipes above, and the water surged violently. Outside the tunnel, Talia Morgan was manipulating the dock controls with precision. Every crane, every flood valve, every container was part of a synchronized plan. "Phase 4 begins now," she whispered to herself, her fingers dancing over the tablet. "Let's see how far they can push before reality catches up with them." On the docks, Daniel's backup units struggled against the water and crates. Officers slipped and collided, their radios buzzing with static and panic. Sofia Alvarez's voice cut through. "Daniel, status report. I'm in the tunnel," he shouted. "They've turned the docks into a trap. Every move we make it's predicted." Sofia's tone was sharp. "Then we adapt. You find a vantage point and observe. Don't engage blindly." Inside the tunnel, Daniel realized he had a small window. The water flow had temporarily disrupted the mechanical labyrinth above, giving him a chance to move forward. "Marcus, follow my lead," Daniel instructed. "We're going to reach the maintenance junction. If we can access the emergency shutdown, we can stop this." The two moved swiftly, narrowly avoiding falling debris and surging water. As they approached the junction, a shadow loomed. Talia had anticipated this move, appearing at the exit with her tablet in hand. "You're persistent. I'll give you that," she said, her voice calm yet menacing. "But persistence alone won't save you." Daniel raised his firearm. "Step aside." Talia tilted her head, eyes glinting. "Do you even realize what's at stake?" Before Daniel could respond, Aiden appeared from the side corridor, blocking their escape. He held a small device that emitted a low hum, another automated control for the docks. "You're trapped, Officer Reyes," Aiden said. "And thanks to you, Phase 4 is complete." Daniel's stomach sank. He realized the chilling truth. Stopping them had accelerated their entire plan. Every action he had taken, every decision, had been anticipated and exploited. At that moment, a sudden movement in the water caught Daniel's attention. A hidden lever, partially submerged, glimmered under the dim light. His instincts screamed this could be the key. If he could reach it, he might regain control of at least part of the dock systems. "Marcus, cover me!" Daniel shouted, diving toward the lever. His boots slipped, and the water surged around him, but he managed to grip it. With all his strength, he pulled it. A low rumble echoed through the tunnels. Some of the automated crates and machinery froze mid-motion. The water flow stabilized. Daniel's heart raced. He had bought precious time, but he knew it wasn't enough. Talia and Aiden watched from above. Talia's face betrayed the first hint of frustration. "He's resourceful," she admitted softly. "More than I expected." Aiden's grin returned, darker this time. "Resourceful, yes, but he still doesn't understand the full scope. Phase 5 is already in motion, and this time, he won't see it coming." Daniel looked around, breathing hard, soaked to the bone. He understood one unshakable fact. Stopping them was the worst decision he could have made. Every step, every plan he had tried to execute, had only made them stronger and more dangerous. Daniel partially regains control by manipulating a hidden lever, stabilizing part of the dock systems. Talia and Aiden's plan is revealed to be multi-phased, with Phase 5 about to begin. Stakes are higher than ever. The operation could have city-wide consequences. Twist. Daniel realizes that his initial interference has given the suspects an unintended advantage, setting up an even more dangerous confrontation. The storm above Harborview City's docks intensified, lightning flashing across the rain-soaked skyline. Officer Daniel Reyes crouched in the partially stabilized tunnel, soaked and exhausted. Every muscle ached, but he knew the worst was yet to come. From the far end of the corridor, a hum began to grow, a deep mechanical resonance that made the metal walls vibrate. Daniel recognized it immediately. Phase 5 had begun. "Marcus, stay close," Daniel shouted. "We don't know what they've triggered this time." The civilian worker nodded, fear in his eyes but trust in Daniel. Above the docks, Talia Morgan and Aiden Cross moved with precision, executing the final stage of their operation. Shipping containers shifted on automated cranes, flood valves redirected torrents of water, and security cameras displayed illusions of movement across the dockyard. Aiden tapped his tablet. Phase 5 is live. By the time the police realize the real threat will be gone, and they'll be too late to stop the consequences. Talia's voice was calm, almost serene. "Everything is aligned. They think they've stabilized the situation, but this is just the beginning. The next hour will decide everything." Inside the tunnel, Daniel noticed a faint glow in the distance. The glow emanated from a control panel, partially submerged but still operational. If he could reach it, he could at least interfere with the suspect's automated systems. He glanced at Marcus. "Cover me. I'll try to reach the panel. Once I have access, maybe we can shut down some of their operations." Marcus nodded and positioned himself behind a low wall. Daniel sprinted through the knee-deep water, dodging falling debris as the flood surged unpredictably. He barely had time to react when Aiden appeared, blocking his path with a shadowy grin. "You're persistent," Aiden said. "I'll give you that, but persistent alone won't save you." Daniel lunged, sidestepping Aiden and reaching the panel. Sparks flew as he began overriding the system, fingers trembling over wet controls. The screens flickered. Some of the automated cranes ground to a halt. Some flood valves locked. It was working, but only partially. Above the docks, Talia noticed the interruption. "He's trying to interfere," she said, eyes narrowing. "Fine, let's accelerate." Aiden pressed a button on a handheld device, and massive cranes began shifting entire stacks of containers, creating a labyrinth that threatened to crush anyone caught outside. Daniel realized the horrifying truth. They weren't just sabotaging the docks. They were using them as a weapon to control the city's shipping infrastructure. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the side corridor. One of Daniel's backup units had accidentally triggered a loose container, sending it swinging toward the tunnel entrance. The water surged, creating a makeshift dam. Daniel's heart pounded. He had only seconds to act. He grabbed a loose metal rod and jammed it under the container, stabilizing it temporarily. "Marcus, now!" Daniel shouted, diving toward the last set of controls. With a few rapid adjustments, he managed to reroute part of the flood valves, giving the police a chance to regain control of the docks. But then, from above, Talia appeared, her tablet still glowing. She raised a finger toward the cranes, and the containers shifted again, narrowly missing Daniel. "You've delayed us," she said softly, "but you haven't stopped what's coming. And thanks to your interference earlier, the city will feel the consequences sooner than I anticipated." Daniel's mind raced. He realized stopping them had created unintended consequences. Each move he made, each action he thought would help, was now amplifying the stakes. The tension reached a breaking point. Daniel had to make a choice: pursue Aiden directly and risk getting trapped, or worse, focus on the control panel to interfere with their automated systems and possibly save innocent lives. He took a deep breath, making the hardest decision of his career. Protect the civilians first. Neutralize the threat second. He focused on the panel, overriding more systems. The flood receded slightly, and some of the containers locked in place. He had bought precious time, but the fight was far from over. Phase 5 begins, showing the full scale of Talia and Aiden's operation. Daniel must make life-or-death decisions under extreme pressure. Twist. Daniel realizes his earlier interference has accelerated the operation, putting the city itself at risk. Suspense builds toward a climactic confrontation between Daniel and the suspects. Thunder rolled across Harborview City, lightning slicing through the stormy sky. The docks were a chaotic labyrinth of shipping containers, partially flooded tunnels, and whirling machinery. Officer Daniel Reyes crouched by the control panel, soaked, exhausted, but laser-focused. From above, Talia Morgan and Aiden Cross moved with precision, orchestrating their next move. The storm and the manipulated dock systems were now allies in their plan, each gust of wind and surge of water magnifying the chaos. "You really are persistent, Daniel," Talia said, her voice echoing from the crane above. "But persistence only works if you know the rules of the game. You don't." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then teach me, Talia, or step aside." Talia's smirk was all the answer he needed. She pressed a sequence on her tablet. Massive cranes shifted entire stacks of containers. Flood valves surged. Lights flickered. Every escape route Daniel thought he had secured was now blocked. Aiden Cross appeared from a shadowed side corridor, holding another device. "Let's see how resourceful you really are, Officer Reyes. You've already delayed us, but can you handle what comes next?" Daniel glanced around. Every corridor, every route, every potential advantage had been anticipated. His instincts screamed that confronting them directly would be suicide. Yet, he couldn't allow the operation to continue. The city's port infrastructure was at stake, and countless lives could be affected. He made a split-second decision. Divide and conquer. "Marcus, the left corridor," he shouted. "2 units, follow me. Everyone else, Block their right flank if possible. We move now. The water surged dangerously, the noise deafening. But Daniel's team moved with precision, guided by his shouted commands. Above the docks, Talia and Aiden watched. Talia's face betrayed the first flicker of doubt. He's adapting faster than we predicted. Aiden grinned. Good. Let's make it more interesting. He pressed a button, sending a surge of water toward the corridor Daniel's team had just vacated. Crates toppled. Debris flew. The team narrowly escaped being swept away. Daniel shouted over the chaos. Keep moving. We're close to the main control room. Marcus, stay with me. Inside the main control room, the magnitude of the operation became clear. Screens displayed schematics of the docks, flood levels, and automated crane controls. Daniel realized the full scope. Talia and Aiden weren't just committing a crime. They were creating a cascading disaster capable of crippling the port entirely. They've planned for everything, Daniel muttered. Everything, except improvisation. He rapidly began overriding controls, his fingers flying over the wet keyboards. Some systems responded, cranes froze, flood valves partially locked, but he knew it wasn't enough to fully neutralize the operation. Suddenly, Talia appeared at the control room entrance, her tablet glowing like a predator stalking its prey. Impressive, she said. You've delayed Phase 5 longer than I expected. But delay only lasts so long. Aiden stepped in behind her, eyes glinting. This is the endgame, Daniel. You realize that, don't you? Daniel's mind raced. If he could distract them, even briefly, he could trigger the emergency shutdown. But that would require drawing them away from their control of the docks. All right, he said, taking a deep breath. Let's see how predictable you really are. The confrontation exploded into motion. Daniel used a combination of misdirection, the partially overridden systems, and sheer bravery to lure Aiden and Talia into the corridor. Cranes moved unexpectedly, flood valves surged unpredictably, and alarms blared. For the first time, the suspects had to react to Daniel rather than him reacting to them. Talia hissed. Impossible. How? Aiden's eyes widened. No one interferes like this. In that moment of chaos, Daniel lunged for the final override lever in the control room. With one pull, all automated systems froze, cranes locked, and the surge of water reversed toward empty corridors. Talia and Aiden were caught off guard, momentarily losing their advantage. Daniel finally confronts the suspects in the control room, initiating the first major reversal of the operation. Talia and Aiden's meticulous plan is disrupted, but their reaction remains unpredictable. Twist. Daniel realizes the operation was only a part of a larger, city-level conspiracy, hinting at deeper motives and higher stakes yet to come. The storm over Harborview City raged on, lightning illuminating the chaotic docks in stark flashes. Officer Daniel Reyes stood in the control room, drenched, every nerve on edge. The emergency shutdown had frozen the automated systems, cranes locked in place, and flood valves partially neutralized. But Talia Morgan and Aiden Cross were still dangerous, unpredictable, and extremely clever. You think you've won? Talia's voice echoed from the doorway, calm but venomous. Her eyes scanned the frozen screens. You've only delayed the inevitable. Daniel clenched his fists. I've stopped your machines. I've stopped the flooding. That's enough for now. You two surrender, and no one else gets hurt. Aiden stepped beside her, a smirk on his face. Surrender? Officer, do you even understand what we're doing? This isn't about money or revenge. This is about showing the world how fragile your systems are. Daniel's stomach sank. He realized the magnitude of their plan. This wasn't just sabotage. It was a demonstration of power, a calculated move to expose corruption and weakness in the city's infrastructure. The first physical clash came unexpectedly. Talia lunged for the control panel, attempting to override Daniel's shutdown. Sparks flew as she grappled with him. Daniel barely pushed her back, adrenaline surging through his body. "Stop this," he yelled, ducking as Aiden swung a metal pipe toward him. Daniel rolled, barely dodging, and grabbed a loose cable. He yanked it free, short-circuiting part of the control system and knocking Aiden off balance. Marcus, standing behind Daniel, shouted, "Officer, the flood valves!" Daniel turned through the storm of sparks and water-soaked control panels. He saw that the floodwater outside had begun creeping back toward critical docks. They weren't done yet. Talia recovered quickly, circling Daniel like a predator. "You can't stop what's coming. You're fighting us, but you're also trapped by your own rules. Every move you make benefits us." Daniel's mind raced. He had to think faster than ever. He realized the only way to neutralize them was to exploit their overconfidence. "Marcus," he shouted, "trigger the emergency manual release. Follow my instructions exactly." Marcus nodded, hands shaking, and began operating a secondary set of valves. Daniel had memorized the layout from previous reconnaissance. If timed perfectly, the manual release could counteract the flood surge and trap the suspects in a containment area of the docks. Talia and Aiden exchanged a glance. "They're improvising," Aiden muttered. "We didn't predict this." Daniel lunged again, engaging them physically to buy Marcus more time. Sparks flew, water surged, and alarms blared. A symphony of chaos. Finally, with a metallic roar, the manual release activated. Floodgates slammed shut, isolating part of the dock where the suspects stood. Water poured into empty shipping lanes, creating a barrier. Talia screamed in frustration. "No, you can't contain us." Aiden tried to override the system, but the emergency locks held firm. Daniel stood panting, exhausted but triumphant. For the first time in hours, the tide had turned. The aftermath was tense. Daniel's unit moved in cautiously, securing Talia and Aiden without further bloodshed. The docks were battered, flooded, and chaotic, but catastrophe had been averted. Sofia Alvarez arrived, drenched but steady. "You did it, Daniel. You saved lives today." Daniel shook his head, his eyes scanning the scene. "We stopped them, but this was bigger than I realized. They weren't just criminals, they were sending a message." Talia, cuffed and defiant, smirked even as she was led away. "You think you won, officer. You only delayed the inevitable. The world will see. One day, someone else will finish what we started." Daniel's hands trembled slightly. He realized the truth. Stopping them had been necessary, but it had also exposed vulnerabilities no one else could ignore. Daniel captures Talia and Aiden, neutralizing the immediate threat. Twist. The suspect's larger plan, exposing systemic vulnerabilities, is only partially revealed. Daniel faces the moral weight of stopping them. He prevented disaster but uncovered a city-level conspiracy. Suspense lingers. The city may never be completely safe, and the suspect's influence may have far-reaching consequences. The storm had finally begun to subside, leaving Harborview City drenched and shivering under a gray dawn. The docks, still chaotic and partially flooded, were a testament to the intensity of the night's events. Officer Daniel Reyes stood atop the main dock, surveying the damage. Crates were overturned, cranes were frozen mid-motion, and the water reflected the pale morning light like a wounded battlefield. Behind him, Sofia Alvarez arrived with a team of investigators and cleanup crews. "Daniel, the immediate threat is over. The suspects are in custody," she said. her voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. Daniel nodded, wiping rain and sweat from his face. They were organized, calculated. Not just criminals, they were trying to expose weaknesses. If we hadn't acted, this could have been catastrophic. Sophia glanced at the containment area where Talia Morgan and Aiden Cross were being processed. Talia's smirk remained, even in cuffs, a silent reminder that the story wasn't over. Marcus approached, soaked and shivering but smiling faintly. "Officer Reyes, you actually did it. I didn't think we'd make it through that alive." Daniel gave him a weary smile. "You did your part, Marcus. Without you, I wouldn't have known the tunnels like I did." As the cleanup teams worked, Daniel walked through the docks, noticing subtle signs of what the suspects had intended. The placement of containers, the redirected floodwaters, the hacked cranes. It dawned on him that this was only part of a larger pattern, a warning the city couldn't ignore. Back at the precinct, Daniel debriefed with Sophia and the rest of the unit. Officers were exhausted but proud. "Every move we made was predicted," Daniel said, leaning over a table covered with maps and reports. "They wanted to show how fragile the system was. We stopped them, but now the question is, how do we prevent someone else from doing the same thing?" Sophia nodded gravely. "That's the challenge. We can't just arrest them and forget. The city infrastructure needs an overhaul." This wasn't just about catching criminals. It was about preventing future disasters. Meanwhile, in the holding cells, Talia and Aiden were calm, almost smug. "You think this changes anything?" Talia asked, speaking to the guards. "We've only shown a fraction of what's possible. Others will learn from us. Others will finish what we started." Aiden leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. "Your systems are flawed. Always have been. One day, someone smarter than Daniel Reyes will exploit them. Just wait." Daniel, standing outside the cell, caught the tail end of their conversation. He clenched his fists. They were right, there were vulnerabilities. But he also knew one thing: he had bought the city time. Time to fix what could be fixed, time to prepare, time to prevent disaster from repeating. As Daniel left the precinct that evening, the city lights reflected off the wet streets. He thought of the tunnels, the docks, the near disaster, and the moments he had to improvise to save lives. He realized that stopping Talia and Aiden had been necessary, but it had also exposed a greater truth. The line between heroism and catastrophe was razor thin. Marcus appeared beside him. "Officer, what now?" Daniel looked toward the horizon, the city still trembling but alive. "Now we rebuild. And we stay ready, because this isn't the last we'll see of clever minds like theirs." The immediate threat is neutralized. Talia and Aiden are in custody. Daniel and his team assess the city's vulnerabilities, understanding the larger implications. Suspense lingers. The suspect's ideology and the city's weaknesses remain, hinting at future threats. Resolution emphasizes Daniel's growth, moral courage, and leadership under pressure.